Welcome to the fourth in a series of online interviews with Richard Harvey, psychospiritual psychotherapist and spiritual teacher. My name is Rob Maker. I'm an interfaith minister, and I lead a spiritual ministry initiative in Ottawa, Canada called Spiritual Guidance. And I've been a student of Richard Harvey's work since 2012. Today's interview will discuss the lecture Honoring the Gate, Blessing, Gratitude, and the Golden Opportunity, Part 1 of 2, from the Sashti Poorthi lecture seminars. This is the third lecture in this 8-part lecture series, and each subsequent interview in this interview series will explore in more detail each one of the lectures in the Sashti Poorthi lecture seminars. Today's interview about the lecture, Honoring the Gate, and all the Sashti Poorthi lecture seminar manuscripts are contained in an ebook entitled Dharma Sky, which is available through the Sacred Attention Therapy website at www.sacredattentiontherapy.com/books. Dharma Sky is one of a trilogy of 3 ebooks, each containing 14 lectures, totaling 42 lectures. The second ebook is entitled Mokshadan. The third ebook is entitled Bodhi Ocean and is currently in production. Again, all ebooks are available through the Sacred Attention Therapy website at www.sacredattentiontherapy.com/books. You can also listen to the full recording of each of the lectures in this series online through the Sacred Attention Therapy website at www.sacredattentiontherapy.com/education. I would now like to provide you with some background about Richard Harvey. He's a psychospiritual psychotherapist, author, and spiritual teacher. His career spans 37 years working with individuals, couples, groups, and communities. He trained in humanistic and transpersonal psychologies and psychotherapy, studied meditation in India, and trained in Soto Zen. He has been influenced by Jung, Gurdjieff, Alan Watts, and Joseph Campbell, the ancient Taoists and the Vedas, predominantly Advaita Vedanta. He has a particular affinity with Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and Ramana Maharshi, and he was more recently inspired by Adidas Samraj and Nisargadatta. Deeper than all these varied experiences and teachings, however, is the early sense of truth that Richard possessed since childhood. A deep understanding and intimacy with the Noumena, the divine source of being. It is from this innate wisdom that his spiritual teaching has blossomed, grown, and developed. Richard is a prolific and passionate author. His two of his books were self-published efforts, The Book of Being in 1998 and Tao's Gift in 2005. The Flight of Consciousness was published by Ashgrove Publishing in 2002, and his latest book, Your Essential Self, The Inner Journey to Authenticity and Spiritual Enlightenment, was published by Llewellyn Worldwide Limited in 2013. Richard has published nearly 2,000 articles, 200 articles, and he is currently working on his forthcoming book entitled Your Sacred Calling. Richard's lifetime of study, work, and experience has culminated in his independent psychospiritual psychotherapy practice from his mountaintop spiritual center, Cortillo Llano de Montarno. The center is set in a beautiful and tranquil 3 acres on the southern slopes of the Sierra Nevada mountains in Andalusia, Spain. And from his center, Richard offers individual therapy and couples counseling in person or via Skype to people all over the world. He offers also psychospiritual training and supervision, as well as courses and retreats. Richard Harvey's work connects personality and spirituality through a middle stage of heart awakening, authenticity, and compassion, in his comprehensive model of human development, the 3 stages of awakening. He is the founder of Sacred Attention Therapy, a profound, radical, and fresh approach to sacred spiritual life and to the dilemmas which have arisen from the accelerated development of ego processes in the 21st century. He believes that it is through the transformation of the individual in his unique struggle to become fully him or herself that we will progress through a collective gestation of soul and spirit into a timely life and expanded consciousness. And now it's my pleasure to welcome and invite Richard Harvey to the call. Good early morning from Ottawa, Canada. Good to be with you. We're talking today about honoring the gate.
Access
I would like to start at the beginning
to the bright world, the
what
world
is this
that's known
gate
as enlightenment,
that you're
whether in a
speaking
graduated
in
stage
this lecture
in
honoring
regard
the
to the
gate?
soul, which is to say the completion of incarnation in our life, whereby somewhere around usually the late 30s, early 40s, a person becomes dissatisfied or possibly encounters a crisis in life that opens them to a journey of insight, usually through some kind of personal unraveling and in time increased depth, or whether it's into the spiritual realms per se. One, after all, is a complement of the other, just the same as we're human and divine. So the gate appears not only momentarily in every second of life, but also when we look back historically, we can say this, and this happened, really appeared to happen. There is a symbolic arousal that leads to our awakening, and that's awakening to reality itself. So this is the gate.
Mm-hmm.
It's the opportunity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It strikes me that in the context of your 3 stages of awakening, the gate is that opportunity for transformation. From perhaps the stage 1 of awakening to stage 2. I'm going to read a paragraph, or most of the paragraph from the beginning of the lecture, leading in to my question, but you share near the beginning of the lecture, the gate, the golden opportunity, occurs in times of grief or of the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, a descent into depression, anxiety, or some other imbalanced mental state, facing the unknown in the form of rites of passage or thresholds of life, assault, betrayal, rejection, abandonment, isolation, or alienation, feeling profoundly alone in life, a crisis of authenticity and meaning, not fitting in, missing life, or misfortune. But what distinguishes these life events from all others is that they offer us a glimpse of something more, something beyond. They promise some revelation, some insight into the mystery. I think many of us, certainly I, can relate to what you're saying here. But my question is, have you ever experienced in yourself or another how the gate appeared as a result of a positive or joyful experience?
It's a curiosity, isn't it?
So, for example, what about the experience of falling in love?
To enter
Either
into
with
the
another
gate
person or with an animal
of
or with nature.
awakening, the gate of enlightenment is inevitably a shock. It's inevitably a
as
jolt.
You're referring to them in this lecture.
And therefore the world of judgment itself is forestalled. You know, the idea, for example, that falling in love or having a positive experience, an epiphany in the temporal realm, for example, is a wonderful thing, is of course as much an attaching or a clinging. It is itself as much of a limitation as it is an expansion, depending on how you look at it. The jolt is necessary for the simple reason that you move out of the realms of the opposites and therefore of judgment, even of evaluation, in a sense. It's curious to us all, I think, if we've been involved in meditation or a contemplative spiritual method, that one of the things that gets in the way, and this is very difficult to explain to people who haven't experienced this, is our attachment to a form of attainment that we project. We project that there will be some sort of deepening, some sort of enlightened state, some sort of a spiritual realization that will appear in a certain form, in a certain clothing, if you will, a certain kind of an image. Yet when you talk on the other side of the divide, as it were, to spiritual teachers, to roshis, to masters, to meditation teachers and so on, who have been through there, they'll speak of cowpats and used tires and dark days and depression in very much the same way as the bright, the obviously bright, the epiphany, the wings, the wonder, the sun, and all of this, because everything has become the sun on the other side. So no, in the sense that the jolt that's necessary, the jolt that's necessary is the one that levers us out of the complacency of embracing half a world, really. Half a world. You have to see the beauty in the ugliness. You have to see the liberation in the limitation. You have to see the light in the darkness.
It reminds me, or you reminded me of a beautiful experience just out in the back of the property a couple of summers ago, where I hosted an early morning yoga class. And there was a point in the yoga class when we were lying in Shavasana, which is typically the final posture in a yoga practice, and I was looking up through the canopy of this very large tree that had graced us all with this beautiful shade during the yoga practice, and I can just remember thinking I could lay here for the rest of the day. And it was early in the morning, and there was that almost transcendent experience, which, again, it does lever you out of what feels like your current existence into another realm. But in the context of the lecture and in the context of your work, it's not that kind of levering that we're speaking about. We're speaking about, and you use the word that jolt, to bring us out, almost force us out of our own self, out of our own skin, to examine our life and help us, in effect, mature and develop. Some do not see the gate even after one of these life crises. And you speak about it, and I'm just going to read a sentence here. Those events that turn your life around are examples of the gate, and when it comes, Biden or not, we must honor it. And I'll repeat that in my lifetime, I've been aware, I've recognized that some don't see the gate even after one of these life crises.
We would do well in a reformation of the culture to adopt an idea of mentoring relationship, guiding relationship of some sort.
We can do to help them see it?
That some of us have found through a therapist or a counselor, others of us have found through spiritual guidance, or a teacher, or a priest, or some wise elder. And culturally, I think we do well to adopt that as a norm, very much the same way as possibly a godparent used to be rather more significant than maybe they are today. Someone who was more active with a younger person and could guide and recognize and shepherd us through stages, through recognizing in the inner and outer worlds of that person's life what is being heralded. It's one of the things that we discovered back in the 70s and the 80s, I think, in the human potential movement, is that the world of ritual had been internalized. The world of ritual has no expression or recognition largely outside, which is why you have in the Western, increasingly Eastern, increasingly global, a youth, adolescent, early 20s crisis has been with us since roughly the end of the Second World War, and possibly throughout the 20th century to some degree, because the world of ritual has been taken away. There's been no recognizable, demonstrable ceremony of being admitted into adulthood, manhood, womanhood, what that means, and how we should go about the ceremonies and the rituals. Therefore, by the time you get to 35, 40, which is, I'm coming back to that from my previous remark, because it's the time of the relinquishing of complacency for so many people. Not by any means the majority, unfortunately, but certainly tens to hundreds of thousands of people, which, if you think about it, is small in relationship to a population of, 7.5 billion or whatever we've got now. It's still small, but it is significant. And it's significant because everyone who passes through a threshold of transformation is bound to influence a group of people, either who are close to them or who are just in contact with them in some kind of a way. I mean, this is confirmed to me again and again when somebody passes through transformation around the middle years in some way. People question their lives. People around them, relatives and friends and acquaintances, people maybe don't know you at all, come into your life and just say, well, what is it? What have you got? What are you living? What have you found out, in a sense? And then you have this wonderful mythological motif, the return of the hero or the adventurer with the boon to give to the society in some kind of way. Now, if we have that more and more and more, it won't be for people to stumble through stages of maturity and wonder what that glitch was about, or how they were thrown off their stride for a minute, or how, they were ploughing and then somehow they dropped the rein for a minute. That dropping of the rein, that losing your stride, that's exactly it. That could be exactly what needs to be recognized to send you down the corridor of transformation. So we can do a lot. We can do a great deal. Elders and counselors and teachers are all in place already to notice the signs, and then to shepherd you through the ceremony, so to speak. And it is a ceremony. And it is a ceremony full of symbols. And it's a ceremony with not really anywhere to go. But, if if politicians wanted to ask me, I would say put in place a ceremony so people have somewhere to go. We do weddings, we do births, we do funerals. Good for us. There's a lot of other thresholds.
Yeah. It's I find it interesting that in my practice and in life and in my ministry work, increasingly relative to 4 or 5 years ago, when 4 or 5 years ago I would be more apt to try and hold out the white towel for the person to proceed through the gate. Now I just let be what it is, knowing that they're exactly where they need to be right now. They know the gate's looking them in the face. They know it's presenting them with the opportunity. It's for them to walk through. And if they want to guide en route, whether, again, to use your examples, that be in the form of a therapist or a counselor or a minister or some spiritual teacher or guide or an elder, they'll seek that out. But I'm much more apt these days to let be what it is. Even though inside it may seem a little frustrating, but then that's my opportunity and my call to look at what's going on inside me. There's another point later on in the lecture where you share some discussion leading up to the mention of a term that I believe you've come up with, the philosopher, hearing and responding to the call of the divine. And I want to read this paragraph again, leading into a question. You share at this point in the lecture, what will your response be to life, to mystery, to love? Or what is your response already, now, in this moment? Whenever you are depressed, angry, unloving, afraid, sad, distracted, searching, you have missed the moment. You have missed the moment in which you may commune with life, take life in, and merge with it. You have missed it whenever you are negative, filled with vengeance or meanness, feeling small-minded or simply unhappy. You have missed the opportunity, the abundant opportunity for reality, gratitude, and joy. You have missed the call to the divine, the philosopher, hearing and responding to the call of the divine. And I can remember reading that in the manuscript and being reminded that in
Our
some
purpose in life
spiritual
is to
teachings,
realize the
perhaps
truth.
many, they offer that in simple terms, our purpose in life is simply to be happy.
We're
Nothing
not
more,
human beings.
nothing less. And I wanted to ask, would you agree with that?
We're nothing that we appear to be.
That our purpose in life,
we are not in possession of
nothing
anything.
more, nothing less,
We are
is simply to be happy.
a formless, indivisible source state of truth and reality. There is no human beings as such. There are no divisions in love itself. And there is no process of continuous time or ending of time or birth or life or death. All of this appearance is very much like a dream somebody brought to me earlier this morning. They were in a wonderful dome, like a cathedral, with this wonderful grouping of beings who were communicating and embracing. And then at some point there was a showing of a film, and this person knew that they'd already seen the film, but they hadn't remembered. And now they were seeing. So this is a wonderful symbolic representation of the truth. You'd appear beneath a beautiful dome of lights, embracing and communicating with all other beings. And then you're invited to witness the projection of life itself as you witness it in the world of appearances, the rise and fall of apparent events, with you apparently identified as a grain of sand, a leaf, a tree, or in my case, a Richard, in your case, a Robert, and so on. This isn't it. Therefore, there is no one to be happy, but is there a state of happiness? Of course. The state of happiness is the atmosphere of truth and reality when there is nothing to do. And there's only nothing to do when there's no identification. And there's only no identification when there's no separation. When there's no separation, there's no division. So happiness is the contented state of peace and tranquility, the depth and the realization of the self. And the self is a ancient symbolic formation for the idea of indivisibility, the idea of non-separation, the idea of no separate self at all. So with the rider and the one condition that, no, there is no one to be happy as such. But is there happiness? Yes, in its indivisible, non-separate truth and reality. That is the atmosphere of it. Yes.
It strikes me that happiness may be thought of as an outcome of a realization of the truth. It may be the outward expression of the realization of truth. Later on in the lecture, again, I'm going to read a paragraph leading into a question. You talk here about receiving others' gifts. And you share at this point in the lecture, learn to receive others' gifts. Be very present in your receiving. Don't be quick to think how you should respond. Simply be in the moment and receive the gift. Accept the gift and accept the other gracefully, respectfully, vulnerably and with reverence. Feel the quality of the giver and the gift. Even if the giver has some hidden reason behind the giving, you may be able to entirely heal his power play, his manipulation, with your responsiveness, openness, and ability to receive.
Loving oneself is a prelim.
And I wanted to ask,
to realizing that one is love.
Excuse me. Of learning to receive others' gifts.
And there has been a
synonymous with
so often
loving oneself.
You know, a tall step there, isn't there? You know, for people who we work with in the realms of personality, because loving oneself has become a taboo. We're asked, at least in Christian countries and maybe countries that subscribe to Middle Eastern belief systems, to love and care for other people, but I think our experience in depth about this is it's very hard to do that when we are still unable to love ourselves. Some part of us is held back, some part of us is retained, some part of us may be angry or resentful, envious or ungrateful, all these sorts of things. So it's a steep step up, but yes, we have to learn to love ourselves merely as a preliminary for practicing from the deeper truth that as a human being you are love, and it's through love or through the heart, which is synonymous, that you come to the realization that you are the same as one another, not different. And therefore the whole world of relationship changes. And as I've said in some of these lectures, there is one of three veils to penetrate, and one is the veil of relationship, in inverted commas, which I extend into the idea of really non-relationship, because this idea of you and I as self and other, giving and receiving, simply isn't the case. It appears to be the case, in which case this idea of taking and giving and fairness and dependency and trust and loyalty and resentment and all of these themes of childhood, really, which we may be able in time to transcend through the pubescent period. It's a time where naturally we should have transcended any residue from the way in which we were brought up. In fact, these themes are carried over for the entire adult life, based on the idea of self and other, based on the idea of you feed me or I feed you, you give it to me or I'll give it to you. And it's actually nonsense in the world of reality. The world of reality says that you and I are the same. It's the same love that passes between us. There is ultimately nothing to give and nothing to receive. The insight is, through self-love, I can extend in my heart to the realization that we are the same, entirely indivisible, and then to the deep spiritual insight and obvious truth at this point, which is that if I am anything, I am love, and so are you, and it's the same love.
Later on in the lecture, you bring up a favorite subject of mine, and that is appreciation and gratitude. And again, I'm going to read a small portion of the lecture, just a paragraph leading into a discussion about gratitude. This gift of life is freely given to you to do what you want to do with it. Now, what will you do? You can moan and suffer and complain. You can enter into negative states. You can read some New Age literature and appear happy and loving, while hiding your deep discontent so that others believe you to be something you are not. You can chase partners or power, money or good times, possess a family or a big house, an opulent existence or a hand-to-mouth life of struggle. The life you have been given prescribes none of this. The way you have responded to life, the way you have responded to the life you have been given prescribes all of this. All is in your attitude alone.
Gratitude is the
Begin by appreciating the gate,
the
the life you
atmosphere
have been given,
of
and the opportunity it presents with
life.
you.
It's
and ask
when you're
profoundly,
truly
now
in
what would I like to do with this?
the life that is your gift to awaken
And I'm a
within.
great proponent
The
of
atmosphere is
developing
full of gratitude.
what I
So
call an
when you have
attitude of
awakening
gratitude.
or insight, when you
What
awaken in the morning,
ways do
when you go to sleep at
yourself
night,
welcome
the
this gratitude practice?
atmosphere is
in
always
your
one
life?
of gratitude. It's like the air. So yes, there's a time for the exercise or the cultivation of that, to align oneself with the heart, to be present. But perhaps it's an opportunity here to say that exercises and cultivation of attitudes are terribly important, but after a while you let go the reins of the plough. After a while you do let go. It's important to bear in mind that meditation method and discipline leads us to a certain state, a certain heart state, a certain centered state, a certain higher spiritual condition. The method in and of itself presupposes we're not there yet. We would all naturally be drowning in gratitude. And I recall a story which I've told a few times, and I've now sent a version of it to a new book. I think it's called The Light, or Awakening to the Light, or something. It will come out soon, and it is the story, or one of those stories of awakening, and what typified it was just being overwhelmed with wonderful gratitude for everything, absolutely everything, without discrimination at all. And the story's fun because, I meet an angry guy in a car. I settled into a cowpat at one point, It was also a beautiful British summer in the glade and the fields and the what have you. It was just beautiful, but there was also these rather interesting challenges, and they were equally as filled with gratitude for me as were the smiles and the sunshine and the breeze and the obvious wonders. So gratitude, we're swimming in it. We should be swimming. We should. That's how you live your life. Otherwise, maybe not living.
Mhm. Mhm. In the few minutes we have left, I want to get one last quick question in. Towards
It's
the end
rather
of the
similar to
lecture,
your previous question, isn't it? Which,
just one
can the
sentence you
gate
state, the
appear
gate
out
appeared
of
when I was least expecting
positive,
it. And you had shared
elative
a
experience? And
personal example
I'm
in the
inclined to
lecture
think
where
no.
the gate
I would
presented it to
have
you,
to think
and you
about
said
that,
again,
because
the
maybe in the
gate
same
appeared when
way
I
some
was
people
least expecting it.
anticipate death and other things,
And
maybe
my
just as
final
possible,
question
but
is, does or
it
can
doesn't
anyone
seem
expect
to be
the gate?
expected, because it is of another dimension. It's a
This
movement
is a
into
matter
another domain,
of
another realm. So
awareness.
it's a little bit like,
But can we
it
expect
is like,
the gate to come?
the person who pops out of a hedge in front of you and tries to surprise you on a country walk or something like this. It's something that's going to, again, jolt or shock or in some way change everything, and not in a self-conscious way whereby you would look at that and you would say, well, my life's going to change now. I don't think I've ever met anyone yet who said they approached that gate and they thought, well, everything's going to change. You're in whatever this is, and something's going on maybe, but you're probably clinging so much to what you've known, and you have no idea, of course, about the unknown at this point, that this transition state perhaps is necessarily unself-conscious, so that you literally have no idea. So anticipation and expectation and any foreknowledge of the process or where it's going, I think must be, what's the word, waived. I don't think you get that. But it'd be interesting if anybody who knows different might tell us. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I guess it strikes me that if one lived their life expecting anything to happen,
Until then.
One might be able to expect, therefore, the gate to appear.
Bye, Robert.